Ending a relationship is never easy, but when it comes to Aries, it's often swift and decisive. Known for their boldness and fiery personality, Aries don't waste time when they've made up their mind. But why do they choose to end a relationship in the first place? The answer lies in their innate need for independence, adventure, and excitement. Aries thrives on action, and when things feel stagnant or unfulfilling, they're not afraid to make a break and move forward, often without looking back. You might be wondering, how do they know when it's time to let go? Well, Aries are driven by their emotions, but they're also ruled by their instincts. When they start to feel frustrated, trapped, or simply uninterested, it's a sign they're ready for change. Their decision might not be based on careful thought or extensive reflection, but rather on that sudden gut feeling that tells them it's over. For Aries, endings can be a release, an opportunity to regain control of their lives and head in a new direction. But what are the exact signs that show an Aries is preparing to end a relationship? These aren't always obvious at first glance, and it might seem like they're just going through a rough patch. However, if you start noticing a shift in their behavior, a certain coldness or distance, it's likely they've already made up their mind. And once they do, they don't waste any time. Aries might be impulsive, but they're also incredibly honest. And when the relationship is no longer fulfilling them, they'll say it. So let's dive into the first few signs you might notice when an Aries is about to call it quits. Number 1, Aries becomes detached. When Aries starts to pull away from a relationship, one of the most noticeable signs is that they become emotionally detached. If you've ever been in a relationship with an Aries, you'll know just how intense and passionate they can be. Aries tends to dive headfirst into relationships, throwing themselves into the experience with enthusiasm and energy. But when things start to unravel, that same intensity fades, and what's left is a cold, almost distant version of the person you once knew. Emotional detachment doesn't happen overnight, but it's noticeable once it begins. Aries will stop initiating contact, whether it's texts, phone calls, or planning activities together. They'll start distancing themselves, pulling away both physically and emotionally. It's not that they don't care, it's just that Aries doesn't have the patience for a relationship that no longer excites them or brings them joy. They start to feel like they're just going through the motions, and that's when they decide it's time to start checking out. You might notice that Aries seems less interested in spending time with you, or that the conversations have become more surface level. They'll start avoiding deeper emotional exchanges, and instead of discussing feelings, they'll talk about anything other than the relationship. For Aries, emotional detachment can be a defense mechanism. When they feel trapped or dissatisfied, they shut down emotionally to protect themselves. It's their way of taking control of a situation they feel is slipping away. For the partner, this emotional distance can be incredibly confusing. One moment, you are feeling the warmth and closeness of the relationship, and the next, you're left wondering where that connection went. Aries can often feel like they are done long before they officially end things, so they start pulling away gradually, hoping that their partner will sense the shift. But because Aries is a sign that thrives on action and confrontation, this distance can feel more like a sudden shock than a gradual change. Number 2, Aries gets straight to the point. While Aries may start emotionally detaching first, when it's time to end things, they don't mess around. They get straight to the point. Aries is a fire sign, and just like their fiery nature, they don't enjoy wasting time with unnecessary drama or prolonged conversations. They prefer honesty and directness, even if that means delivering the harsh truths. When Aries decides it's over, they're quick to say it. This approach can be shocking for their partner, especially if the emotional detachment wasn't immediately recognized. But once Aries has made the decision to end the relationship, they don't typically hesitate. They'll sit down with their partner and, with little build-up, tell them exactly what's on their mind. I think it's time for us to break up, or I don't think this is working anymore, are phrases that Aries won't shy away from saying. For Aries, there's no need to dance around the issue or make it more complicated than it is. This can be a bit of a shock, especially if you're not expecting the sudden shift in the relationship. One minute, everything seemed fine, and then, in an instant, Aries lays it out there. They do it not out of cruelty, but out of a desire for clarity. Aries doesn't enjoy drawn-out emotional turmoil, and when they've reached the conclusion that the relationship isn't fulfilling them anymore, they're ready to move on. No questions asked. They will deliver the message with little fanfare, and once it's done, Aries will often walk away feeling a sense of relief for the partner left behind. The suddenness of Aries' approach can feel like emotional whiplash. It's a stark contrast to the intense, passionate nature Aries had at the start of the relationship. But for Aries, getting straight to the point is all about cutting through the mess. They want to free themselves from something that no longer serves them, and they want to do it without dragging out the inevitable. While this direct approach might seem harsh to some, Aries values honesty above all else. They believe that both partners deserve to know the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. The straightforwardness of Aries means that once the breakup is decided, there's no more hesitation, no second guessing. It's a clean cut, and they move forward, ready for the next adventure. When Aries starts to withdraw from a relationship, one of the first noticeable changes is their communication, or rather, the lack of it. Aries is typically a passionate communicator. They're expressive, direct, and love to engage with their partner, especially in the early stages of a relationship. However, once they've emotionally detached or decided that a relationship is no longer fulfilling, their communication begins to slow down and eventually fade away entirely. Number 3, Aries stops communicating. One of the most telling signs that Aries is ready to end a relationship is a dramatic drop in communication. In the beginning, they're the type to send spontaneous texts, check in throughout the day, or call just to talk. This constant connection is part of what keeps the relationship dynamic and exciting for Aries. But when they feel things starting to fizzle out, they'll stop putting in the effort to stay in touch. At first, you might notice small things. Maybe they stop sending those good morning texts or stop calling you as often. It won't feel like a huge change right away, but over time, the gap in communication widens. It's not that Aries is intentionally ignoring you. It's just that they've emotionally moved on and no longer feel the need to maintain constant contact. They've already made their decision, and the relationship to them is no longer worth the energy. This decrease in communication can leave their partner feeling confused, hurt, and unsure of where they stand. You might start to wonder if something is wrong, especially if Aries suddenly becomes unreachable or responds with short, uninterested messages. The truth is, Aries is trying to distance themselves emotionally, and this is one of the ways they do it. They simply stop engaging as much, withdrawing from the relationship without much explanation. Their mind is already made up, and they don't feel the need to justify it with lengthy conversations or discussions about how they're feeling. For Aries, it's a simple matter of wanting to move on, and communication becomes a barrier to that process. For someone who thrives on connection, this silence can be painful to endure. Aries doesn't understand why their partner would need endless validation or constant reassurance. Once they're ready to leave, they prefer to do so quietly, in their own way. And for the partner on the receiving end, it's difficult to accept that the person they once shared so much with is now essentially a stranger, someone who no longer seems interested in continuing the dialogue. But why do Aries choose to do this? Well, they are often governed by impulse and their desire for freedom. When they feel suffocated or unsatisfied in a relationship, Aries may feel like cutting off communication is the fastest and most efficient way to gain back their personal space and independence. For Aries, there's no point in dragging things out with lengthy conversations if they know that the end is inevitable. It's simply easier to retreat and start focusing on themselves. Number 4, Aries focuses on their independence. The other significant sign that Aries is ready to end a relationship is their sudden, intense focus on their independence. Aries is an inherently independent sign. While they enjoy companionship, they value their freedom above almost everything else. Relationships for Aries are supposed to be exciting, spontaneous, and empowering. But if they start to feel restricted or like their personal space is being invaded, they begin to retreat. Once Aries begins to focus more on their own needs, it's often a sign that the relationship is no longer fulfilling for them. They'll redirect their energy towards their own goals, hobbies, or passions, things that make them feel alive and free. If they were once invested in shared activities or plans, you'll notice them dropping these commitments in favor of pursuits that are purely personal. Aries might start picking up new hobbies, diving deeper into their career, or simply spending more time alone doing what they enjoy. This shift can be jarring for their partner, especially if they've been used to doing things together. Aries no longer wants to share every experience with their partner or get their approval for everything they do. They might even cancel plans or avoid making future ones, as their desire for independence outweighs the desire for shared experiences. This isn't necessarily about not caring, it's about Aries needing their space to recharge and feel like themselves again. Relationships for Aries need to feel energizing, not draining, and when they no longer feel energized, they start to reclaim their autonomy. Aries' desire for independence can also stem from their deep-seated need for control. When things are not going their way in a relationship, they'll often react by regaining control over their personal life. They'll pull back, focus on their own development, and start making decisions that benefit them alone. In fact, Aries can sometimes be so focused on their own growth that they forget to nurture the relationship, which leads to them emotionally disconnecting. For someone who thrives on independence like Aries, being in a relationship that feels suffocating or stagnant can feel like a prison. Aries needs to feel like they have the freedom to grow, explore, and take risks. When they don't, they may begin to distance themselves in order to preserve that freedom. Their partner may feel neglected or unimportant, but for Aries, this shift is essential for them to feel whole again. What this looks like in practice is often subtle, but very clear once you know what to look for. Aries will start saying no more often when it comes to activities or plans that involve their partner. They may also withdraw from long-term commitments or hesitate to make any joint decisions about the future. They simply don't want to be tied down by anyone or anything at that moment, and the need to reclaim their individuality becomes their top priority. For Aries, a relationship should enhance their life and bring out the best in them. But when it starts to feel like a burden or an obligation, their instinct is to pull back and regain the sense of freedom they so desperately crave. It's not about love being lost, it's about their own emotional needs taking precedence. And once they start focusing on their independence, there's little that can convince them to stay in a relationship that no longer feels aligned with their true self. Aries is known for their fiery nature and quick temper, and when they've made the decision to end a relationship, this fiery energy becomes even more apparent. One of the first signs that things are heading in this direction is when Aries begins to get frustrated quickly. Small issues that never seemed to bother them before suddenly become major problems. Conversations that once flowed easily now turn into debates. Simple disagreements turn into all-out arguments. Aries, being ruled by Mars, the planet of aggression, tends to react impulsively when they feel trapped or unsatisfied. So, when they start becoming frustrated with their partner, it's a sign that something is seriously off. Number 5, Aries gets frustrated quickly. Aries doesn't like to waste time, and they certainly don't enjoy being in a relationship that feels like a constant struggle. If their partner is repeatedly doing something that annoys them, Aries won't sit back and tolerate it for long. Unlike some signs that will silently stew over their frustrations, Aries reacts. The frustration is outwardly visible, and they're not afraid to show it. If Aries starts snapping at their partner for little things or overreacting to minor issues, it's a clear indication that they are no longer emotionally invested in the relationship in the same way. The reason behind this sudden frustration lies in Aries' need for action. When things aren't moving forward, or when they feel like the relationship is stagnant, Aries starts to get irritated. They're used to things being dynamic, energetic, and full of passion. If they feel like they're stuck in a rut, that feeling of frustration builds up quickly, and they'll have no problem expressing it. Aries doesn't have the patience for relationships that drain them emotionally or mentally. If they start feeling like they're constantly putting out fires or trying to manage problems that never seem to get resolved, the frustration will reach its peak. For their partner, this sudden change in behavior can be bewildering. Aries may go from being sweet and loving to impatient and short-tempered seemingly overnight. What feels like a minor issue to their partner might feel like a major problem to Aries. And once the frustration reaches a boiling point, Aries may not hold back. They'll voice their dissatisfaction loudly and clearly, often leaving their partner in shock. For Aries, there's no point in trying to keep up a relationship that feels like it's filled with constant tension. They'd rather face the truth and move on than continue in a relationship that leaves them feeling exhausted or frustrated. Number 6, Aries shows impatience. If you've ever been in a relationship with an Aries, you know that they're not the type to sit around and wait. Aries thrives on action, spontaneity, and living in the moment. So when they start to feel like they're stuck in a relationship that isn't going anywhere, their impatience becomes painfully clear. Aries has a very low tolerance for being in situations that they don't find exciting or fulfilling, and this impatience can be a huge sign that they're ready to end things. The impatience Aries feels when they've decided the relationship is over isn't just about wanting immediate gratification, it's about needing to take action. They can only tolerate stagnation for so long before they start to feel like they're suffocating. In their eyes, a relationship that doesn't move forward is a waste of time, and they become desperate for change. The moments when Aries feels like they're waiting on their partner to make a decision or take action become incredibly frustrating for them. They want things to move at their pace, and if their partner isn't keeping up, Aries' impatience will start to show. Aries doesn't do well with uncertainty. They're quick to make decisions and don't like to be stuck in limbo. So when they begin to feel unsure about the relationship or the future, their patience runs thin. If they start pushing for answers or acting impulsively, it's because they want to see progress, either in the relationship or in their personal life. If nothing changes, Aries may get to the point where they can't tolerate it any longer. They might start making rash decisions like abruptly ending the relationship or taking off without much explanation. To Aries, making a decision is a form of relief, and the sooner they can do it, the better. This impatience isn't just about wanting the relationship to end. It's about Aries wanting closure. They want to know where they stand and where things are going. If the relationship is stuck in a rut and their partner isn't stepping up to make it work, Aries will take matters into their own hands. The longer Aries stays in a relationship that doesn't satisfy them, the more their impatience will grow. And once they've had enough, they won't hesitate to pull the plug, even if it means doing so in a way that seems abrupt or rushed. For their partner, this sudden impatience can be frustrating. If they're caught off guard by Aries' need for quick decisions, it can feel like they're being rushed into something they aren't ready for. Aries doesn't have time for endless indecision, and if their partner is unwilling to move at the same pace, Aries may just call it quits. Aries values their time, their energy, and their freedom. And when they feel like they're wasting any of these on a relationship that isn't progressing, impatience is bound to take over. For Aries, the future is always something to look forward to, a series of exciting possibilities, goals, and adventures. They're a sign ruled by Mars, the planet of action, and as such they thrive when there's a sense of purpose, direction, and movement in their lives. But when they've decided to end a relationship, one of the clearest signs that they've checked out is their sudden refusal to make future plans with their partner. If you're in a relationship with Aries and you've been noticing that discussions about the future have become increasingly absent or non-existent, this is likely because Aries no longer sees a future with you. Number 7, Aries stops making future plans. When Aries is emotionally invested in a relationship, they're eager to talk about the future. They'll casually bring up ideas about vacations, where they want to go in a few months, or how they envision their life with you. Aries loves dreaming big and building a shared future with their partner. However, once they start mentally checking out of the relationship, those future plans begin to fade. You might find that they no longer want to discuss the next trip or talk about future goals that involve both of you. Their focus shifts from us to me, and they no longer want to make long-term commitments. This doesn't necessarily mean that Aries has bad intentions or wants to hurt their partner. It's just that in their eyes, if they don't see a future with someone, There's no reason to keep discussing things that don't align with their current feelings. Aries can't help but be future-focused, and when they stop talking about the future, it's often a sign that they've made up their mind about the relationship. They may subtly avoid discussions about anything that requires a commitment, and if they're pushed on the topic, they might become defensive or short with their answers. "I don't know," or "I'm not sure about that," might be their standard response, signaling that they're no longer interested in moving forward with you in the same way. This avoidance of future planning can be particularly difficult for the partner left behind. It feels like the relationship is being put on hold, or worse, heading toward an inevitable end. For Aries, this is often the final step before they break free. They've already mentally checked out, and now their actions, like avoiding future plans, reflect that shift. If you notice this in an Aries partner, it's time to pay attention. It's one of the most reliable indicators that they're no longer committed to the relationship, even if they haven't said it out loud just yet. Number 8, Aries becomes apathetic. Another sign that Aries is nearing the end of the relationship is a noticeable shift in their emotional energy. When Aries is in love or even just interested, they're all in. They're passionate, fiery, and filled with excitement about being with their partner. They enjoy keeping things fun and engaging, whether it's through spontaneous adventures or deep, meaningful conversations. But when Aries no longer cares about the relationship, their enthusiasm evaporates and a sense of apathy sets in. This apathy can be a slow burn. At first, you may notice that Aries seems a little less engaged or excited when they are around you. The spark that once made their eyes light up when you entered the room starts to dim, and they stop putting in the effort to impress or surprise you, and even the smallest gestures of affection become few and far between. You might feel like you're the only one trying to keep things alive, while Aries has mentally checked out of the relationship, leaving you to do all the work. They're still physically present, but emotionally they're elsewhere. Aries' natural energy and drive are what make them such magnetic partners, and when that energy is no longer directed toward the relationship, it can feel like the life has been sucked out of it. Apathetic Aries is no longer willing to make plans, engage in meaningful conversations, or do the little things that once brought joy to the relationship. Instead, they're going through the motions without any real interest or passion. This behavior can be incredibly frustrating for their partner, who may not understand why Aries seems so uninterested and distant. It's as though Aries is a shadow of their former self, still there, physically but emotionally checked out. For Aries, this apathy often stems from their internal struggle. They may not want to hurt their partner or cause any unnecessary drama, so instead of ending things outright, they withdraw emotionally. This lack of engagement can be their way of giving their partner the space to see that something is wrong. But while Aries may think they're being subtle, this shift can be painfully obvious to anyone who's paying attention. When Aries stops making an effort, it's not just a temporary phase. It's a sign that they no longer care in the same way. Their natural energy has shifted from vibrant and passionate to indifferent and distant. If Aries has begun to show signs of apathy, it's often too late to salvage the relationship. They're no longer motivated to nurture the bond, and without that drive, the connection begins to fray. This apathy can be particularly painful for their partner because it's not a sudden rejection, but a gradual fade into disinterest. Aries won't necessarily end things with drama, but the emotional withdrawal is loud and clear. They've mentally moved on, and their actions, or lack thereof, prove it. When it comes to relationships, Aries is a sign of action. They thrive on energy, movement, and progress, which means when they've made the decision to end things, they don't waste any time. Aries doesn't linger in a relationship that no longer brings excitement or fulfillment. They're ready to move on the moment they've mentally checked out. If you've ever wondered how quickly Aries can move on after a breakup, the answer is that it often happens fast. They're not the type to dwell on the past or get stuck in an emotional rut. Once they've made the decision to end things, Aries is eager to start fresh and embrace the freedom that comes with it. Number 9, Aries is quick to move on. Aries is known for their impulsive nature and their desire for constant action. When it comes to ending a relationship, They don't waste time mourning or overthinking things. They make a decision and they act on it immediately. For Aries, moving on is a natural part of the process, and once they've mentally separated from the relationship, they're ready to look ahead. This can be a bit jarring for the partner left behind. While they may still be processing the breakup, Aries has already moved forward. Aries might start focusing on their career, new hobbies, or even new relationships, often with a sense of urgency and excitement. They don't want to sit in the sadness of the breakup. In fact, they tend to feel that staying in that space would be a waste of their energy. Aries doesn't believe in wasting time, and after ending a relationship, they quickly redirect their attention to something that will help them feel revitalized. For Aries, moving on isn't about ignoring their feelings. It's about embracing the next chapter of their life. They tend to compartmentalize their emotions and move forward with a sense of clarity. Once they've made the decision, they're no longer emotionally attached to the past. They're the type to dive straight into new projects, social activities, or new relationships because they need the stimulation and excitement that comes with new beginnings. This quick transition from a breakup to a new focus can make Aries seem detached or cold. However, for them, this is how they cope with the end of a relationship. It's not about avoiding feelings, it's about embracing the next stage of life with enthusiasm. Aries doesn't linger in the past, and they don't hold on to what's already gone. For them, life is about constant growth and change, and when a relationship ends, it's simply a sign that they're ready to take the next step. Number 10, Aries feels a sense of relief. While it may seem like Aries doesn't experience the emotional weight of a breakup, the truth is that they do feel relief once they've made the decision to end things. Aries thrives on action, and the decision to walk away from a relationship often comes after a period of frustration or dissatisfaction. When Aries has been in a relationship that no longer fulfills them, the emotional strain can start to weigh heavily on them. Once they've made the decision to break up, however, they feel an immediate sense of relief. It's like they've removed a heavy weight from their shoulders, and they're finally free to move forward without the burden of a relationship that no longer serves them. This relief doesn't necessarily mean that Aries doesn't care about their partner. It's just that they've realized that staying in the relationship would only hold them back from personal growth. For Aries, freedom is essential, and the moment they free themselves from a relationship that's become stagnant, they feel lighter and more energized. It's as if a new door has opened, and they're ready to walk through it without looking back. The sense of relief that Aries feels can be a powerful emotional shift. Once they've let go of the relationship, they no longer have to deal with the frustrations that came with it. They're no longer worried about trying to make it work or fix something that felt broken. Instead, they can focus on themselves, their goals, and the things that make them feel alive. Aries is a sign that thrives on excitement and independence. So when they're free from the constraints of a relationship that no longer fits, they feel empowered and ready to take on new challenges. However, this relief can sometimes be misinterpreted by their partner as a lack of care or indifference. The truth is that Aries simply doesn't dwell in emotional turmoil for long. Once they've made up their mind, they move forward with the understanding that the relationship served its purpose and that it's time to grow in new ways. While their partner might still be processing the end of the relationship, Aries is already focused on their next adventure, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. When Aries ends a relationship, they don't just move on. They shift their entire focus back to themselves. Aries is a sign that thrives on independence and self-expression. And when a relationship becomes a source of frustration or doesn't align with their goals and desires, they quickly turn inward. After all, Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of action, and they are all about forging their own path. So, when they've made the decision to end a relationship, their attention turns to self-preservation, self-growth, and putting their own needs first. Number 11, Aries becomes more focused on their own needs. Aries by nature is fiercely independent. In relationships, they are often willing to give a lot of themselves to make it work, sometimes too much. They may initially invest a lot of time, energy, and passion into their partner and the relationship itself. But when things start to go wrong, they quickly shift back to focusing on themselves. This isn't to say that they're selfish or callous. Rather, it's a natural response to the emotional strain that often comes with ending a relationship. Aries needs to recharge, rediscover their passions, and remember what makes them feel alive again. Once Aries decides the relationship isn't working, they begin to prioritize their own well-being. They'll immerse themselves in their hobbies, their work, or their personal growth. If they have dreams they've put on hold or passions that they neglected during the relationship, they'll return to them with full force. Whether it's picking up an old hobby, diving deeper into their career, or simply taking time to reconnect with friends, Aries focuses on activities that re-establish their identity and sense of independence. This focus on their own needs can manifest in many ways. Aries might take trips alone, plan spontaneous adventures, or dedicate themselves to fitness or self-improvement. They understand the importance of rediscovering themselves after the emotional weight of a relationship. In fact, this newfound focus often helps them regain the sense of excitement and enthusiasm that they lost during the relationship. They crave new challenges and the sense of personal achievement that comes from pursuing their own goals. This behavior is natural for Aries, and it's a coping mechanism for them to regain their energy and sense of control. It's not about abandoning others or being indifferent to the past. Rather, it's about reminding themselves of who they are and what they want in life moving forward. Their need for independence is essential to their happiness, and when they're no longer emotionally attached to a relationship, they'll begin to feel more free and empowered to pursue their own desires. However, this shift in focus can leave their partner feeling neglected or unimportant. For the person who's still processing the end of the relationship, Aries' sudden turn inward might seem like a rejection, but for Aries, it's about regaining balance. After investing so much energy into a relationship that no longer serves them, they need time to recharge and refocus. This is when they start to invest more in themselves, something they should have done earlier, but often put on the back burner for the sake of the relationship. Number 12, Aries avoids conflict. Another significant behavior change that Aries undergoes when they decide to end a relationship is their tendency to avoid conflict. This may seem counterintuitive, especially since Aries is typically known for their fiery nature and willingness to confront issues head-on. However, when they're ready to walk away from a relationship, they can often become more passive or even avoidant when it comes to direct confrontation. This shift occurs because Aries, while confrontational by nature, has already made the emotional decision to move on and doesn't feel the need to continue fighting for something that no longer holds their interest. When Aries decides to end a relationship, they want to do it in a way that's clean and final. They're not interested in dragging out emotional arguments or fighting over who did what wrong. They've already emotionally checked out, so they prefer to avoid conflict and move on as smoothly as possible. This can manifest as Aries withdrawing from discussions or avoiding the partner altogether. If they sense that a confrontation is coming, Aries might become distant or even act indifferent, hoping to bypass any uncomfortable conversations. In many cases, Aries might even avoid their partner after they've made the decision to end things. They don't want to continue rehashing the issues that led to the breakup or engage in any emotional exchanges that might prolong the situation. Aries has already made up their mind, and now they want peace and closure. They'd rather avoid the emotional tension that might arise from a prolonged conversation or argument. This behavior is often a sign that Aries is ready to move on, and they are trying to avoid any lingering emotions that could hold them back. While this avoidance may be difficult for their partner to understand, it's not a sign that Aries doesn't care. Rather, it's a reflection of their desire to move forward without additional emotional baggage. Aries doesn't like to be bogged down by unresolved issues, and they will often take steps to avoid any further drama or conflict. This can leave their partner feeling unsettled or unsure of what happened. But for Aries, avoiding conflict is simply their way of protecting themselves and ensuring that they don't get pulled back into a relationship that no longer works for them. For Aries, avoidance of conflict isn't about being cruel. It's about taking control of their own emotional well-being. They know that continuing to engage in heated discussions or trying to fix something that's already broken will only drain them. Instead, They choose to move forward, leaving the past behind and focusing on the future. As we've explored throughout this video, Aries' approach to ending a relationship is intense, quick, and decisive. Aries is a sign of action and passion, and when they feel that a relationship no longer serves their needs, they move swiftly to disconnect emotionally and physically. Whether it's the emotional detachment that happens gradually or the abruptness of them getting straight to the point with their partner, Aries doesn't waste time. Their focus shifts from being a partner to being an individual, and this transition can be both jarring and confusing for the person on the receiving end. But for Aries, it's all about regaining control and embracing the freedom they value so much. We've seen how Aries becomes detached, stops communicating, and pulls away from making future plans. They shift their focus back onto their own needs, whether that's rediscovering their independence, diving into hobbies, or working on personal growth. As soon as Aries has made their decision, they don't waste time looking back, and they quickly begin moving forward with a new sense of purpose. They may even feel a sense of relief when the relationship ends, as if they've liberated themselves from an emotional burden that no longer fits their needs. The truth is, Aries doesn't like to dwell on the past. Once they've emotionally checked out, they want to move on, pursue new opportunities, and find the excitement that they crave in life. This is why their breakups can feel sudden and harsh to those left behind. It's not that Aries doesn't care. They simply don't want to remain in a situation that feels stagnant or unfulfilling. They may even avoid conflict to prevent further emotional entanglement, preferring instead to move on quietly and without any lingering drama. This need for freedom and independence is what drives Aries to avoid conflict and focus solely on their own personal growth. After a breakup, Aries will throw themselves into projects, travel, new experiences, or even other relationships. They crave action, and once the decision has been made, they're ready to embrace the future with excitement and optimism. So, if you've noticed these signs in an Aries partner, whether it's their sudden emotional withdrawal, their impatience, or their disinterest in future plans, know that they may already be preparing to move on. Aries is a fire sign, and when they feel the flame of a relationship flickering out, they don't hesitate to walk away. It's important to understand that this isn't about a lack of feelings. It's simply how Aries navigates relationships. Their need for growth, excitement, and independence often outweighs their attachment to any past connections. But if you've ever been in a relationship with an Aries, you know how passionate and engaging they can be when they're invested. That same energy that they pour into their relationships can quickly fade when they feel stuck or trapped. Aries wants to feel alive, and if a relationship no longer provides that spark, they will find it elsewhere, even if it means ending something they once thought was important. Now that you've learned how Aries handles breakups, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a relationship with an Aries? How did they handle the end? Or maybe you're an Aries yourself. What's your experience when it comes to ending things with someone? We want to know your thoughts and experiences, so leave a comment below and share your story with us. We're always excited to hear your perspective and engage in conversation with our viewers. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video and learned something new about Aries, make sure to subscribe to Secret of the Zodiac for more insightful content on zodiac signs and relationships. We've got tons of other videos you won't want to miss, so take a moment to browse our channel and explore more. Hit the like button if you found this video helpful, and please share it with anyone who might enjoy learning more about the zodiac and how it affects their relationships. We appreciate you being part of our community, and we encourage you to continue watching and engaging with us. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. If you've enjoyed the insights in this video, stay tuned for more zodiac breakdowns and relationship tips. Comment below and let's get a conversation going. Whether you agree, disagree, or have your own unique perspective, we want to hear from you. Your comments help us grow and create even more valuable content for you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.